who I have wanted to have on this show for a while. I can't stress enough, man. I love the work that these guys do. We got Neill and Matt from C-Ray UK. How you guys doing today?
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
Good, thank you. How are you?
I'm living, man. I'm living. Frustrated at this team, but I'm living.
Right.
Yeah, all good. Obviously, just been saying about how tired we are, but that's nothing new.
For sure. I appreciate it. I don't think when we scheduled this that I don't even think we knew the Bulls would be playing on Friday, but I appreciate you guys after staying up to 3 a.m. Stay up late on a Saturday too to come in and rock with me, man. Speaking of that, how'd you guys feel about the Bulls' performance? We're less than 24 hours removed from the Bulls being eliminated by the Miami Heat. How'd you guys feel about that game?
I'll let you go, Matt.
I mean, anyone who listens to our podcast, I've been out on the team since Christmas. I've been ready for the season to finish, but as we've just been saying, sick of watching this Bulls team lose. Since the All-Star break, obviously it's been a lot better. But yeah, last night I was well and truly back in. I was hyped for it, and it had that Game 7 feel about it, and that's how it felt when we lost, because it was do or die. So obviously losing it hurt last night, and it was me and Neil. We were chatting till about 4:30 this morning, and we just we were deflated, exhausted, but expected. That was the worst thing about it, I think.
Yeah. I think that's the saddest thing about it. Really, is has been all season long with this team. They reel you in to the point where you start thinking, okay, maybe we're getting somewhere. Mm-hmm. And, it seems like every time you start climbing back up a little bit again, they let you down with such a bang. And last night was an absolute example of that fall off from the edge of the cliff. It was a sad way to go out, I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it sucks because, like, everything, the story around that, the Bulls were 3-0 against the Miami Heat and how well we played. I'm like, man, I just feel like this is going to end. I was, of course, predicting the Bulls win just because I'm a homer, but it just felt like it was the we opened the season with a win against the Miami Heat. We end the season with a loss against the Miami Heat. It's just it's a microcosm of how the season's been, man. And watching that game, the Bulls taking the lead briefly, and it did feel like that, hey, maybe they're going to ride out this momentum. But, Jimmy Butler just went into a level, and the Bulls didn't have anything to combat it, man. But to your point, like I was ready for the season to be over, honestly, for a while, just because I really want to see what AK is going to do. We have to improve this roster drastically, and I'm not saying blow it all up or anything like that, but I really want to see, all the talk that AK does, and he even said it today in the press conference, like, the city deserves more, the fans deserve more than the team at 500. Okay, now you have to show that, though. It's easy to say it, but like you have to do something, right? And so I'm hoping that we improve in a major way this offseason for sure.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I was just listening to AK speaking before I came on to here, and at the moment it feels like a lot of lip service, a lot of the right thing that needs to be said, that saying what people need to hear, but we need to see action now, and hopefully this offseason is going to present that for us.
Yeah, for sure. We need a lot of action. When you guys look at this roster, is there anybody that you kind of think has to come back, you want to see back, that you want to see gone? A lot of Bulls fans, it seems like a lot of hate gets thrown towards Vooch. I don't necessarily blame as much on Vooch as people say. He even said at his conference today he wants to come back. Now that could be lip service. No one's going to sit there and say, "Yeah, I'm out of here." But what do you guys? How do you guys feel about this roster, and like how would you kind of like to see it reshape?
Yeah, I'm not a Vooch hater by any means, but I find him the most frustrating player on the roster. I think we need him to come back, because who else is there out there that fills his role? And I think that's got to be the priority, is sorting out Vooch, and then the point guard position, obviously with Lonzo and everything that's going on with that. Because obviously that's what's held us back all year, is waiting on Lonzo to come back when everyone knew he wasn't there. As for who else comes back, we've got to re-sign Coby.
Yeah.
if we don't re-sign him, I think Bulls Nation will just implode. Unless we get something good as a sign and trade for him, which I don't know how much value he's got around the league, to be fair. I mean, he's valuable to us, but does everyone else around the league see that? As for that, you've got Zach and DeMar. If we're going to change things, it's got to be one of them that goes, I think. And I think everything points towards DeMar. Age, obviously, expiring deal next year. Apart from that, obviously, it's just role players, isn't it? Ayo's going to be a big one as well. What do we do with him? Because he's had a bad year. I mean, what was it last night? He got less than 5 minutes and nothing.
He airballed that shot and was out.
Yeah. And but we've seen before when we give up on these youngsters, what ends up happening. So we've kind of got to bring him back, but sort of develop him at the same time. And I don't think we can develop him and P. Will at the same time. I said at the start of the season that having him and P. Will as starters just wasn't going to work because we were expecting too much out of P. Will, but we needed a lot more out of Ayo as well. So, and I know obviously you keep saying about Javonte Green. I mean, as you can see the jersey, he's my guy.
Yeah.
I think he's gone, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I don't know if the fact that we've kind of shut him down without actually saying we shut him down at the end of the season might help re-sign him. Might lower his value a little bit. I don't know. But, he deserves to get paid for how he was before his injury.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So, yeah, everyone else, I'm a bit, so what?
Definitely understand that. How you feeling, Neil?
Yeah, I mean, myself and Matt, we often have very similar wavelengths in the way we think and the way we talk about the team. And I think DeMar is the most realistic option if we are going to break up the big three. I don't think that there is at least an obvious option to replace Vooch with for what he brings to the table and for what we're going to get him for. Hopefully we'll get him on a team-friendly deal of some description if we do re-sign him. I do think DeMar is the one to go. I think we're locked in on Zach at this stage. And hopefully we'll be able to put together some sort of a package with DeMar that brings enough back into the core that we can restructure more than rebuild this team.
Yeah, I agree. I think restructure is going to be the way to go. And to Matt's point, like I think Coby, it's crazy like the year and a half Coby's had, right? Most Bulls fans wanted him traded by the trade deadline last season for a big. And he went into the offseason, to his credit, completely worked on his game. And now I look at him and I'm like, and one of my first big videos to blow up since I started this channel was last season and before the season. I said the Bulls would be crazy to trade Coby White. And Bulls fans thought I was crazy for saying that. And now it's like I love the way that he's developed. I love how he's added to his game. And I also think that AK, even though a lot of those weren't players that he drafted, saw how many players left this Bulls team and then develop. You don't want to continue to see that. We don't want to keep being the team that drafts these young players, give up on them, and send them away. So I really hope Coby's back. I think he's definitely played his way into earning the contract. You just never know in the league, but it really does seem like a foregone conclusion. I don't know what else you can ask for him. He's giving you everything you can need.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at one point we were relying on Coby to just be this streaky shooter. And he, like you say, worked on his game so much that he now has developed into a two-way point guard, really. He's opened up the floor. The game seems to have slowed down for him. He seems to see the plays a lot better than he had previously. And he's shooting the ball, maybe not as well as he was, but his all-round game, and most importantly, his defense is just, it's so much better.
Yeah. He's one of the best on-ball defenders on the team now. Like, it's wild to see. And even off-ball, like, he's way more active. And you can tell he's playing with a level of confidence. And we've seen players before. Once you get confident in what you can do and your ability, that's when your game really starts growing exponentially season after season. So I was happy to see that confidence get built in him this season. And I can't wait to see how he uses that as a platform to continue building his game on. Now, Matt, you said something about Javonte, man. And I love Javonte Green. He's a Chicago Bulls type player. But I think the writing does seem like it's on the wall that he's probably going to be gone. Like you said, unless the injury lowers that value and we can keep him. But even then, I just don't know.
No. Yeah, I mean, is he? He's kind of easy replaceable as well in terms of what we need. Because he's not a shooter. He's not really 3-and-D, is he? Do you know what I mean? And that's what we need going into next season. So it's a shame to see him go because he is that energy off the bench. But I think maybe that's where Dalen comes in next year.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point too.
Obviously we've just got to work out what we're doing with him. Is he a point guard? Is he a 3? You just don't know because we haven't seen enough of him.
Mm-hmm.
But when we do see him, he is like a Javonte Green, but with the stat pad in the Lonzo Ball. He's just a bit of everything. And he'll chase the ball. He just runs around like a lunatic out there, doesn't he? But if we can get that talent sort of under control, and I assume he's going to go work out with DeMar if DeMar's still here. DeMar said anyone under 24 is mandatory, hasn't he? So he'll be on his LA boot camps. And we've seen the relationship he's got with DeMar already. So I think, he's going to suck losing Javonte, but hopefully we can develop Dalen into that energy guy off the bench. I mean, he gives the energy on the bench whether he's playing or not, doesn't he? So he's dancing, and so it's going to suck losing him, but I think we can replace him quite easy with a position of need, and obviously we've got Dalen for the spark and the energy. So
that's fair. Well, and you mentioned position of need. One of the biggest positions of need most people are going to think is point guard. How do you guys think that the Bulls are going to address the point guard? Do you think they're just going to run it back with Pat Bev, maybe an additional signing? Do you think Coby's going to get more of a chance at the point guard next season? Lonzo pretty much primarily isn't going to be back next season unless something crazy happens. Or would you like to see the Bulls kind of go out and get a big name point guard, use maybe a DeMar as a trade chip or whoever else to kind of bring that name in? Neil, I'll come to you first on this one. How are you feeling about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it could go either way, really. It's very hard to kind of work out exactly what direction they're going to go with it. But, I mean, it is obviously an area of need. I mean, we're stacked at the one position, but at the same time, nobody really caters for the needs that we actually have. We have plenty of combo guards more than a true point. And I think that's the problem. Even though I do think Coby has developed a little bit more into more of a point guard, but I still don't know if he's ready to carry a team just yet. Hopefully, maybe if he works more, he might be able to work then as a 1-2 punch with Pat Bev. If we re-sign Pat Bev and keep him going forward, I think we all got kind of caught up in the Pat Bev effect, and we all thoroughly enjoyed it. But towards the end there, we started to see more of a Pat Bev defect, and unfortunately, that was what we saw last night as well.
That's a great point, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, I was really high on Pat Bev long before we was even linked with him. I said he was the sort of player we needed, just to hold people accountable and stuff like that. But as Neil says, as it's gone on, I'm not fallen out of love with the idea of Pat Bev, but he's not the starter that we need. I don't think. If we can bring him back on a vet minimum sort of deal, off the bench, still got him there, that kind of works. As for Coby, I mean, it sounded like in the exit pressers that they do want him to come back, and I think it was Billy who was saying that he sees him. He could be that starting point guard. We've had this discussion, me and Neil, on our own one, and I love Coby. I love what he's done. I actually had him down in our pre-season predictions as being our most improved player. So I've loved Coby all year. But for me, the role he's got now is the role that he needs, because it's as if he's finally found his role.
Yeah.
And I think too much emphasis gets put on the starters as well. Because we saw Ayo starting and he was doing all right, and then God knows what happened with him. But for me, Coby can have an influence on the game coming off the bench like he has been doing. That sixth man, whatever, which is what we wanted from Caruso to start with. And obviously that changed to him playing at the 4. But yeah, I think Coby could do it, but it's not necessarily what we need. In terms of signing somebody else, who else is actually available that fills, because obviously we're tight on the cap as it is. Obviously we've got the Lonzo situation, which we could free up some cap space with that, but obviously bar Vooch, I think sorting the Lonzo thing out is the main priority. We know he's not coming back next year, if at all, to be fair, and they've got to make a decision. Personal side of it, you feel for Lonzo, but basketball side, business side, it needs sorting out and sharpish, so that we can move into next season and know where we're at.
That's a great point. Like the Lonzo decision, if they do decide to file for either one of those exceptions, it kind of makes it more clear maybe the direction they're going in this offseason. And to your point, Matt, like it's just the business at this point. I love Lonzo, and if I could have my way, I'd much rather have Lonzo Ball back healthy and on this team. But at some point, you just have to make the tough business decision and realize it's highly unlikely that he's gonna be able to come back. He has 24 months left on his contract. The average time to recover from that injury, and that's not even to come back at a high level, is 18 months. And Lonzo's already a bit of a slow healer himself on regular injuries. So it just seems like the writing's on the wall with that one. That I hate to say it, but if I had to bet, it's probably going to be that Lonzo Ball doesn't play again, at least not for the Bulls. But hey, I'd love to be wrong on that one. I would love to be wrong.
Yeah, we've spoken about this before as well, and I feel really genuinely sorry for the kid. I mean, he seems to be a great guy. He was transformative when he was on the court for us. I mean, he was just exciting. He made this look very, very enjoyable to watch. Fast-paced, transition ball, able to shoot from the three. It was everything we needed, and it seemed to pull everything together and put a nice little bow on top. But I mean, the facts are the facts, and this is a business. Taking the person side out of it and looking at it as a business, it's just such an albatross around the neck of this team right now. Financially, a position that's being a roster spot that's being taken up, and it just doesn't look like he's going to be coming back. Certainly not for next season, anyway.
Man, it sucks. Some of the most exciting basketball that we played as a team has been that little stretch, 33 game stretch we had with Lonzo Ball, and we've never quite gotten back to that level. When you look at some of the younger players around this team, Patrick Williams is a name that's going to be that's a lot of Bulls fans. It can be polarizing. Some people feel one way, some people feel another way with Pat. Where do you guys sit on Patrick Williams overall, especially like him at the 4, him at the 3, that conversation going on, but just overall, like at his ceiling right now? Where do you guys view like Patrick Williams' ceiling is, considering now we have about 2 1/4 season of seeing P. Will?
Well, yeah, I thought you might. I have a massive love affair with Patrick Williams.
Okay.
Right? I love Patrick Williams. He is very polarizing, very frustrating, but I just see his ceiling as being so high. I think his biggest problem is his basketball IQ. If he could just somehow raise his awareness on the court that little bit more and his decision making, I think he could be an absolutely fantastic player for us going forward. I mean, he is built like an absolute tank. He doesn't realize sometimes how big he really is. Sometimes I get a little bit confused as to why he can't hold on to the ball when he's got hands like shovels.
Yeah.
But I mean, that aside from it, when he does something right and he does something well, that's when you really, really realize what he could potentially be. It really excites me. I really hope he can develop into the player I think he's going to be, and I think he will be for us. Plus, I just love the arc on his shot. I don't know if you've seen on social media, we always have a bit of a thing going on every time he hits a 3. I love his sexy rainbow 3s, and Matt always shouts out to me, and I put the rainbows out, Hey,
that 3-point shot's become a weapon for him. Matt, how you feeling about P. Will right now?
Aside from Vooch, he's the most frustrating player on the roster for me. And it's just coincidence that them two have played all 82 games this year, or what was it, 84 now. I'm not as high on him as Neill is, and most of Bulls Nation. I think I don't think he's going to be the player everybody thinks. He's not Kawhi Leonard II. I think he's just going to be a solid role player, starter, however you want to word. I don't think he's going to be a star. I hope he proves me wrong, because we need somebody that we've developed into a star. But I think, next year is going to be a big year for him. And if he doesn't show the improvements that we're all wanting, then, Bulls Nation are going to turn on him quicker than they do with every other player. The potential's there. Like Neil says, he's a big body. The 3-point shot's there. And to be fair, he looks better when DeMar's not on the court.
Yeah.
And I think if, obviously, DeMar is the player that goes this year or this off-season, that might improve P. Will. But then, you just don't know. It's the fact that he can put up a good game and then disappear for the next two.
Yeah.
That's what frustrates me with him. And I'm not out on him by any means, but I'm not high on him either. He's just there. That's where I am with him. He's just there.
My biggest hope for P. Will is that that they try to prioritize him to a degree in the offense, because you don't want to run into a situation again. At least I don't think, where you have to try to, because he's up for extension next summer. You don't want to have to extend him and still have all these questions on what can you be, right? So like, even if you try to go through him 10 possessions a game and just get a bigger sample size, because we've seen it. Like, when Pete Will's engaged, it helps him on offense and defense stay a little bit more engaged. He does need to be more aggressive. I would think that, but I kind of split the difference between. I do think that Pete Will still has super high ceiling, but I'm still fine if Pete Will just turns into Luau Deng. I'm happy with that at this point. Like, that's somebody you can build around. That's somebody who can be a 10-year starter for you, and it helps the flexibility of how you build your team. It's really hard to get a buzz on P. Will when he's not confident, he's not aggressive, but then on top of that, he doesn't get any plays called for him. It's just hard to really kind of tell what he can really be. So,
yeah, I agree with you. And, to the point of DeMar, when DeMar's off the floor and P. Will is on the floor, he seems to have that little bit more confidence in himself to be more aggressive, to be more attacking. I think he kind of gives himself up to DeMar and Zach when they're both on the floor together. It's almost like he sees himself as the fifth option. So therefore he takes that step back, sits on the corner outside the 3-point line and kind of waits for the game to come to him.
Yeah.
Whereas when they're not on the floor, he's more inclined to attack the rim and get into better positions. So who knows?
Yeah. We'll see. Hopefully we'll see. One of the more encouraging parts of the Bulls' latter season, now after Pat Bev was added, and really since December, I always kind of say after the All-Star break, but really if you go look, Zach has been getting back in track since about mid-December. Zach LaVine finally fully healthy. Yes, he had a terrible game against the Miami Heat, so it's kind of weird timing to be talking about this, but how encouraging was it for you guys to see Zach LaVine really bounce back in a meaningful way this season once he started trusting that knee and stuff again?
Yeah, I mean, we run like polls and stuff like that on our accounts to find player of the month, who everyone thought was a player of the month for obviously December, January, whatever it is. And I think we actually went with him in as far back as December, didn't we, Neil?
Yeah.
Everyone else kind of went with Vooch, I think, at the time, or DeMar, whatever it was. But we've been there with Zach since sort of December onward, like you say. You kind of think it's post All-Star break, but he was our best player, I think, before that as well. A couple of months leading up to it. At the Raptors game, you think, we've got Max LaVine. That's what we needed to see. But then against Heat, we had Zach LaVine, and it seems like they're two different players. Obviously, at the trade deadline, there was all the rumours coming out that he was going to Knicks and stuff like that, and you kind of felt the problems on the team were Zach, especially after the Magic game where he got sat, and then obviously the blow up in Minnesota and stuff like that. But obviously that's all behind closed doors, and we don't know officially what went on and stuff like that. But I think in terms of the fact that we have maxed him, And March, he just went off, didn't he, in March?
Yeah.
A crazy month. It shows that if we put the right players around him, then he's going to be that player we want him to be. And yeah, the Heat game is, that was a disappointment, especially after the Raptors game. Because all night we were just thinking, when's he going to go off? You're just thinking, right, you've had a slow start, he's going to go off, but just obviously didn't happen. And I think a lot of that's down to the way Heat were playing him, rather than Zach not turning up, because Zach didn't want to lose that game. Zach wanted to be in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think if any kind of a rebuild, it's going to be around Zach, to be fair, because we've maxed him and he's shown back end of the season the player he actually is, I think.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah. I think as well, a lot of people seem to get lost on the fact that Zach came into this season still injured, really.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was still recovering from injury. And it took him a while to get his feet under him. And once he did, we started to see kind of shadows of it to begin with. And then he really started feeling it towards the end of last year and into the new year. And I mean, a fully fit, fully healthy Zach LaVine is a scary prospect for the opposition. And it's great to see. And that's the kind of player you can build a team around. And what I loved, and we talked about this too, was when we beat Toronto the other night, when the cameras panned around to Zach, you could just see Zach mouthing, "Let's go to Miami." And that was the Zach that you love to see. Now, okay, unfortunately, it didn't pan out that way for a finish, but still, you could see he had that fight and that adrenaline rushing through him, that he wanted to go to Miami. He wanted to get that game done because he wanted to go into the playoffs. And he's getting a lot of heat right now, and it's a shame to see. It's a pity it's ended that way for him this season.
Yeah, it sucks, and Bulls fans and how reactive we can be as a fan base. And I know that there's been tons of overreactions about Zach LaVine's game, and it sucked to have. I don't want to act like I'm excusing it. It sucked that that's the last performance and that how he ended the season. But best believe Zach didn't want that season to end that way, and I think he's going to come out really. I think he's going to build off how he ended the season, not against Miami, unfortunately, but how he ended it on the last stretch of that season. And really, we're going to see a healthy Zach on the outside. Whoa, I can't talk today. On the start of next season, and I think that the Bulls are going to start off on a much better platform than what they did. So hopefully, let's hope so, man. Let's hope so. And I hope Vooch back too. I really hope Vooch is back, man. I love Vooch. So
yeah, I hope so too. And I think like we always talk about, when they run the game through Vooch, especially to begin with at the start of a game, and it's working, it's always frustrating when they come away from that then, because, if it's working, why stop doing it? Play it until it stops and then come away from it. Don't come away from it before it stops working.
That's a fact. Well, all right, enough about this team. I want to talk about you guys a little bit, man. Is that okay? Can we get a little personal?
Yeah.
How'd you guys become Bulls fans?
I'll let you go first, Neil.
I mean, I grew up in England. I live in Ireland now, but I grew up in England watching the 90s Bulls and fell in love with this bald-headed guy that was doing these amazing things in the air. And as you can see, I've got the Jordan jersey behind me. Massive Michael Jordan fan, and he pulled me in, and that was it. I was hooked. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Bulls fan for life.
So,
yeah, it's pretty much the same. 90s Bulls fan. Sort of waned a little bit. It was hard to keep up with, from Europe and stuff like that. With before the internet, but always kept in touch as much as I could growing up. And then as I got older, I joined the military and I served out in Afghan with the US forces, and that sort of pulled me right back in. To be fair, just working alongside them, and it was a sort of time, D Rose time as well, when I was out there with them, and it was just a different sort of thing to watch the game with people that understood it, as rather than you sort of trying to watch it in highlights and stuff like that. we were getting the games live out there, and that really drew me back in. I mean, that was back in 2009, I think, 2010, something like that. But yeah, always been a Bulls fan, and then it was just. I think the reason why we started to see red was because we needed other people to talk to in a similar position. You know, there's nothing worse than watching a game at 1 o'clock in the morning and you just sat there by yourself. And it was just, yeah. I mean, I know obviously you grew up in Europe as well, didn't you? So you know how hard it is to watch the games. It's not easy, but 1 o'clock tips are a normal thing for us now. So
yeah.
It was terrible. Like, because that was before we had to watch it when I was living in Germany and Italy. Like, that was before even League Pass was even a thing. Like, we literally used to be stuck on whatever showed on AFN was the American Forces Network. And when it did show, say up to 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. Thank God my dad's born and raised in Chicago, and he let me do it because I would be up and then he'd have to wake me up at 6 o'clock in the morning to get ready for school. I'm like, hey, man. Yeah. I just watched the Bulls lose. It sucked, and that was especially during the Baby Bull era. To stay up to 2 o'clock in the morning to watch Eddie Curry play basketball is a unique type of hell that I would never wish on anybody in life. So, oh man, that was tough. Who's your guys' favorite 3 Bulls of all time?
I'll let you, Neil.
Okay, well, obviously, number 1 man is Michael Jordan. Second of all, you got to go D Rose, and then I'm probably torn in third place between Dennis and Joakim.
It's a nice list. That's fair. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, it's obviously MJ. Big Rodman fan as well. You know, he's my type of player. You know, he's not a star by any means, but he knew what he had to do and he did it. And obviously the character that comes with him as well. How can you not love him? And then, D Rose, Joakim. Yeah, again, Joakim's that kind of guy, you knew what you were going to get with him. Obviously, we were lucky enough to meet him in Paris as well, and he seems like a genuinely nice guy as well. So, yeah, I'd say pretty similar list, to be fair.
That's fair. Mine just, of course, MJ, D Rose, no slight to Pippen, and then Joakim. Joakim Noah is probably my favorite Bull of all time. If we're not talking about on the court, like I got to meet him once, but outside of that, just the turnaround on my story. I don't know if you guys heard it or not, but like I hated the Bulls when they drafted Joakim Noah. I thought it was a waste of a pick. I didn't think he was going to turn into anything. That first season was so up and down. And then by the end of his second season, not only did I have a Joakim Noah jersey, my son had a Joakim Noah jersey, and we were huge Joakim Noah fans. So like just to me to do a complete 180 on a player from when they were drafted to when he was finally traded away, it was like I had to take a moment because it was like the end of an era. Like Joakim Noah meant so much to that Bulls team, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think a lot of people felt like that about Joakim when he was first drafted, though, didn't they? Yeah. Because, he was this funky looking guy with this weird curly hair and stuffed into his cap. And he kind of has this weird tornado shot and just didn't see how he was going to fit in or have any kind of an impact on the team. But like you say, I think we all fell in love with him very, very quickly. He was just infectious.
Yeah, for sure. The heart and soul of that Bulls team, even though Derrick Rose was the best player, Joakim Noah was the heart and soul of that team. But anything you guys want to ask me? I know I've kind of ran this here so far, but feel free to take it over. Anything you want to ask me? Any questions? Anything?
What did you make of Billy last night?
Oh man, God,
there's
that
a
was
lot
terrible.
going around about that.
That was terrible, man. And then to hear him explain it afterwards, it was just like, Billy, how did you come up with that explanation? Like him say he went defense. Kobe was playing better defense, I would say, and shooting the ball better than Pat Bev at the time. Kobe should have absolutely been in that game. Taking Drummond out when we got the lead, when Drummond was in the game, was another thing. And while I'm not a Vooch hater by any stretch of the imagination, I believe that sometimes you just have teams that are just your matchup. And I think the Miami Heat, at least last night, was a great matchup for Andre Drummond. And to move away from him at the height of how good he was, at least wait for him to cool off. It was it was so many head-scratching decisions from Billy Donovan last night.
Yeah, I mean, we've said all year that Billy needs to, if Drummond's going to come back, he needs to learn how to play him.
Yeah.
He needs to learn when to sit him, because a lot of the time he's let it go too far with him, and that's when the chaos ensues and the fouls start coming and stuff like that. Whereas if he just learn when he's just about to tip over the edge, then sit him. But like you say, either sits him too soon or too late, and then he sits him for 3 games then, and it's just like, you know. I mean, Drummond, I know he's a bit of a, a polarising figure as well. A lot of Bulls Nation don't like him, but personally, I think he's come in and he's done a job. I think he was better at the start of the year, and then obviously whatever's gone on through the year has kind of knocked him. Obviously, don't help Billy sitting him. It's just, I'm not a big fan of Billy's small ball lineups. Yeah, and last night with Billy as well. I mean, we've had some discussions in a chat today, and we've actually had it kind of explained to us by somebody who worked with the GB setup, coaching wise. He sort of worked with Ben Gordon and that when he was over here, and he says he's worked with Nick Nurse and Chris Fleming, and he kind of explained to us that although Coby was hot, he was starting to, you've got to learn as a coach, when to pull him, and that's maybe why he did. But it was essentially a game 7 last night, and Coby was hot. He was hitting his threes. Like you say, his defense was there, and Pat Bev had been bad all night. I mean, that foul he got on Adebayo where he looked like he was trying to leapfrog him.
Yeah.
It's just, that was the crazy side of Pat Bev coming through, and the amount of wide open threes he was missing. You're just thinking, Coby's more than capable of defending at that, and I mean, I don't know how many minutes Coby ended up with last night, but there was 4 minutes left when he got pulled. I'm sure he could have got another 2 minutes out of it at least before. And I think in that 2 minutes, he could have hit maybe another 3 threes, and the game's out of reach. But obviously, we got Jimmy Butler coming through, didn't we?
That's for sure.
Yeah, well, I'm not a big Jimmy Butler fan, which I know upsets a lot of Bulls Nation, but is just not my type of player.
Yeah, he got Hollywood as hell right towards the end of that stretch with the Bulls. Man.
Yeah, he did.
Anything left?
Just where do you see this team going now in the offseason and moving forward into next season? And what would you like to see?
That's been the biggest question, because I can see so many different routes that they would go. And it really depends, I think, on if Vooch does want to return. If the Bulls do bring back Vooch, everybody says that they want that to re-sign here. So if that does happen, I think at that point you have to start, because Vooch has had to sacrifice the most of his game. And I think some fans don't realize that, especially if you don't watch the game. A lot of fans, they don't get a chance to watch. I don't mean that as a negative. I love DeMar. I love what he's meant. I love the mentorship. But I really do think to help modernize this offense and this team to add more shooting, unless DeMar all of a sudden DeMar's added stuff to his game. So unless he just adds a 3-point shot to his game, I do think that, moving DeMar is probably the best choice. I think he's going to get you a lot back, being an expiring contract, a veteran, things like that. And I just want to see this team add some shooting. I wouldn't mind seeing Coby White at least get a chance to start as the starting point guard in the season and just see how it works. I think his best role is going to be off the bench, but hey, maybe I've been wrong before. So, but ultimately, I just want to see talent added to the team. I don't have a list of players that I want the Bulls to go out and get for sure, because at the end of the day, I just look at it like this. We need some shooting, we need some size, and we need better talent, specifically off the bench if we're going to keep most of the starters. And let's hope for the best. Ideally, I would like to see them move on from Billy Donovan, but that's definitely not going to happen. So that extension, man, it still doesn't make any sense to me.
The secret extension. Yeah. Have the Bulls even come out and admitted that they've done that? They haven't.
They still have. Even I thought maybe in this press conference today was going to be the time to do it. They still have not officially. We don't know the years. We don't know any. They have not officially said anything about the extension. It's crazy.
That's one thing that I didn't understand is obviously before the season started, we said we were going to start talking with Vooch.
Yeah.
It was during the pre-season and training camp and stuff like that. And then nothing comes. And then the extension that does come is Billy. And you think, well, how have you flipped between the two? It's just don't make it, now we're sat wondering what's going to go on with Vooch. It's just, I haven't been impressed with AK, to be fair, this last year. I think he's really got to win Bulls Nation back this off-season. So...
Yeah, I agree with that because, I mean, he came in, he made some moves, and, I mean, hats off to him for getting DeMar, Caruso, and Lonzo in the season that we didn't have any cap space per se, but, like, you kicked the can down the road last offseason. You cannot do this offseason. You have to do something meaningful this offseason. So,
yeah, and they're going to have to try and get creative too, because we don't have much in the way of cap space or in the way of assets really to work with. We certainly don't have any draft picks to play around with.
Unless we get lucky again, and we got a 1.7 chance at the number 1 overall pick. I mean, if this season ends with the Bulls actually keeping that pick and it falls in the top 4, it'll bring home even more how up and down the season has been. Like, that would be crazy. I wouldn't even know how to react to that. My brain may shut down for 24 hours to just process what just happened. So. But all right, fellas, man, I appreciate you guys so much, man. I'm not going to hold you too much longer. I know it's late. I know you guys don't usually record on the weekends, man. Thank you so much. Go ahead and tell them where they can find you guys and your show, man, and let's get up out of here.
Yeah, well, you can find us on all the socials. We're there under C-Reg UK. We're very active on Twitter at C-Reg UK. You'll find me at Neill C-Reg UK on Twitter. And you'll also find us on Facebook and Insta, and then we have the podcast as well. I'll let Matt tell you about that.
Yeah, as Neil says, you can find us on all the socials. It's quite simply at C-Reg UK. Obviously, we have our own accounts as well. And yeah, the podcast, C-Reg UK, it's a Chicago Bulls thing. It's only been going a few months, so check it out. And yeah, as he says, we're always interactive on the socials. So if you've got any criticism of it, we'll come back at you.
I love that about you guys, man. You guys are definitely fun on socials. That's how we got connected, man. And y'all make sure you guys go and check them out. If you want to follow me, you can do so at CEO Haize. The podcast is at Bull Central. And that's it, man. We out this mug. I'll see you guys later. Peace out.
Thanks.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.